All right. So a lot of you have subtly, I will give you that, subtly asked, so what's up with you playing Daggerheart? Like, why? And there are a lot of posts and videos out there reviewing Daggerheart that I could point you at, but I don't think any of them really explain what I'm doing playing it, or why, or what I'm getting out of it, or what's challenging. So luckily, I have a way to share that sort of thing myself. So let's talk about Daggerheart for a minute. First thing I want to get out of the way is kind of a disclaimer. I have never watched Critical Role, never watched an episode of it. I've never watched Dimension 20. I've never really watched any polished actual plays out there from any of those properties, any of those groups or anything like that. It's just not my thing. What I have done is I've watched Vox Machina, which always makes me laugh a little bit because it's a fun show, but that is not D&D. There is no fight in D&D that resolves as fast as a fight or a conflict in Vox Machina. You watch a fight in that show, and you will see every main character, every PC, and every major bad guy does about 3 things, and then the fight or the action sequence ends in some way. That ain't D&D. Do you know what that is? That is Into the Odd. That is Chris McDowell. 3 rounds, done, boom. That's a masks fight if you're pacing it well. That's Ironsworn. That's indie games. So when I see Vox Machina, I see a story from someone who used D&D to get there, but knows that D&D is not going to give someone the story beats and the pacing that keeps someone's interest. So when they come up with their own game, what they're trying to get to is something a little bit more interesting. But when I see what kind of audience the Critical Role has, you can just bet that whatever game that they come up with, it's going to be played broadly. And if it's any good, it's going to keep getting played. So it's probably going to be worth knowing the game. There's going to be more Daggerheart. So we play it so that they kind of learn it defensively, if nothing else. They can jump in. Now, is that enough of a reason to play Daggerheart for any length of time? No, not really. But we're still doing it. And we're still talking about it. We talk about it a lot. So what is it about Daggerheart that's got my gears going? You know, what is it that excites the kids? Why does it work? Why is it weird? And I'm going to tell you, every single answer I have for why it's weird is not going to be the answers that you see. Problems or the challenges that they're having in the game are simply not the problems or challenges that I'm going to have with that game. Okay. What is Daggerheart? It's very specifically trying to do something that I think is useful, which is bridge the gap between folks who are, let's be honest, mostly, if not entirely familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, and that's it. And they're bringing in really good stuff from indie game design to strengthen their own games. The more modern, narrative-focused game design that has been the entire indie scene for a long time now. So mixing all of this together means the game feels a little incoherent at times. But it's incoherent precisely because it's trying to serve these two masters. It wants to incorporate good game design from maybe less well-known games, while simultaneously keeping players who are more familiar with D&D comfortable and having the kind of experience that they expect at the table. So this is where it really sets itself apart from a couple of other movements in tabletop design, in my opinion, that have tried and failed to provide a compelling alternative to D&D. So on the one hand, you've got the old school revival, the OSR, the NSR, whatever you want to call it, game design group, okay, where their dedication is staying tied to the core original D&D rule set, but innovating and making it better. But they're kind of find themselves in a bind. And the stuff that they're getting excited about aren't necessarily what the D&D people, the mainstream D&D people are thinking of as the D&D experience. It's great. I love those games, but that's what it is. And the thing is, most, if not all, OSR games don't have a huge following. So if they go too far off into the wilderness away from where they started from, they lose their dedicated players. Darrington Press does not have that problem. They don't have to be as careful as an OSR designer with how far they go afield because, frankly, their fan base is huge and their fan base is rabid I say with great respect. So they are going to mostly stick with them until things get really weird, and probably a little bit past that, because those folks have earned that level of trust from their fan base. So they get to kind of spin off however they want. Then on the other hand, you've got indie game designers. And I say this with love, truly, but in my opinion, they often have trouble. Again, we're talking about this thing where, like, how do we come up with a game that gives people the D&D experience in an alternative way that will attract people? And in my opinion, indie game designers, in many cases, often kind of have trouble believing that people really like D&D. Okay? They see the flaws, they see the outdated mechanics, they see the things that they don't enjoy, and they design games that are very brilliant in their own right. And they're building them from a place of not quite grasping why D&D resonates with so many people. So for them, it's like trying to provide a great experience, a great replacement for pickles, when they absolutely, completely fucking hate pickles. The best they can do is, well, I like carrots, and it's basically the same thing because it's crunchy and it's a vegetable, so we're going to start with carrots. And they miss the core appeal for all these people, which is that specific pickleness that keeps people coming back. So the replacements never quite hit the mark. I would say the closest in indie that came to like really going, let me give you a D&D experience that isn't ironic, like kind of going, okay, we're doing this, but we're not really doing it, is probably Dungeon World. And Dungeon World, unfortunately, came in with a whole raft of other problems. And again, Darrington doesn't have this problem because they also fucking love pickles, okay? So Daggerheart can try to thread this needle. You know, we know what you like. We know what you're used to, and we also genuinely appreciate what indie design brings to the table in many cases. So take our hand. We will show you. It will be weird, but it will be okay. So they preserve this D&D experience while also trying to nudge you into a newer design. Okay. There's a familiar structure. You get your distinct classes. You get your bards, your druids, your warriors, your wizards, and a lot of neat little tweaks on that. And you get your ancestors like elves and dwarves and humans and halflings and there's like 14. I don't know. There's a bunch. And they're very, very easy to make more of them. Specific character traits like your agility, your strength, knowledge, the levels and leveling up. Detailed equipment list that you can kind of go, oh, this is the thing I want to get later for weapons and armor and all this stuff. And the weapons all doing different dice damage. It just feels right if you play D&D. So that's the D&D thing part of it. On the indie game side, it's adding stuff that helps you get more towards that experience that you're expecting from the games that aren't D&D. So I really like these meta currencies that they have in there of hope and fear. I love the dice mechanic for it. It feels very much like a PBTA game because you're kind of rolling these 3 dice, and it's giving you these different nuanced levels of success and failure. You know, you've got your crit, you've got your full success, you've got your success, but you've got your failure, but you've got your failure, and furthermore, fuck you additionally. I like the fear meta currencies because it takes something that say a Masks GM just kind of has to get a feel for when is a good time for me to go, when is a good time for this kind of stuff. It somewhat is spoken to in the rules. When this happens, and do this. When this happens, do this. And it makes it just a little bit, it gives people a few more signals of what you do and when you do it. Man, I tell you what, there are so many videos out there advising people on how to handle initiative in Daggerheart or turn order or combat and how to manage it when you don't have an initiative dice roll. And I kind of have to this is honestly, it was so many of those videos that made me think I kind of want to say something about what it's like to run this game if you're somebody who jams a lot of indie stuff, because they spend a lot of time talking about a thing that nobody who GMs Masks is going to think twice about. I like the little added tools that they put in there just in case you feel like your table needs a reminder, like one guy should not go like 14 times in a row, because that's kind of boring. So they have a couple of nice little optional tweaks in there that honestly are kind of nice just to kind of keep track of like who hasn't gotten the spotlight in a while. They have a lot of stuff in Daggerheart for player authorship, your backgrounds, building up your experiences, the connections that you have to other people straight out of like any PBTA or Forged in the Dark game, you know, connections between the other people in the groups. Failing forward mechanic. Every time you roll the dice, the scene changes. Like, this is not new stuff, but it's introducing it to a very large audience of people who can get with it and get excited about it. I can't even tease anybody about it because all those conversations of, oh, how do you handle this? And what do you do in a situation like how do you not get stuck right here? It was all conversations that we were having on the Forge 20 years ago and story games 10 years ago and G+ communities and stuff. The fact that we hammered it all out and now they're having those conversations and asking those questions, honestly, is great because it means it's getting out to more people and those problems have gotten answers in the meantime, and they're anticipated and spoken to in the rules for the game, which makes the game pretty good. Is it weird sometimes? Absolutely. I'm going to give you the easiest example of like a weird mishmash of rules is people who play D&D, they want to roll big, lots of dice for their weapons. Okay, but the system is that you've got like 6 hit points. So if you're rolling a couple like 3 D12s and adding a big chunk of, how do you take and resolve that, this D&D experience of like me, big Warhammer, swing multiple dice, rattle, rattle, math rocks, to you've got 6 hit points. And because there's a conversion, kind of a conversion chart in the middle of going, okay, now compare that to your damage thresholds and go, okay, well, that's a severe hit because I hit you for 36. That's a severe hit, so you take 3 hit points. In something like Apocalypse World, the big weapon does 3 hit points and it just saves all that problem. But what it takes away from the experience is getting to roll the big handful of math rocks. Okay. And they accepted that that's the pickle. Like, people want to do that. It isn't just about the efficiency of it. It's about the experience of it. And how do we get that and hook people and let them feel comfortable and have that fun and still have a nice, elegant system on the back end? Is it a little clunky? Yes. Am I super excited for 5 years from now when the second edition of these rules come out? Probably. This stuff all works. I want to make it clear. This stuff all works. It's not even very, it doesn't get in the way. Once you're used to it, it doesn't get in the way of the game. I just think it's going to be more elegant 2 years from now. Do I know what that's going to be? No, a streamlined experience in a couple of years. But it doesn't mean it's not good now. It is, right? So yeah, Daggerheart is good. It's doing something genuinely interesting, leveraging an audience that lets them do that and still stay in the spotlight because they have so much interest and support. Trying to pull in the trad D&D crowd into a more narrative, collaborative, player-authored space while still giving them enough familiar structure to not freak out, it's pretty good. Because the fact of the matter is, I also like pickles. The stuff that they're bringing into the game is stuff that I have legitimately missed, but I'm never going to go back to it because I was in the pickle factory, guys, for 10 years, and I absolutely burned out. I cannot just do pure pickles. But I like them on sandwiches. I like that. It's fun. I will even eat a whole pickle. I just can't eat nothing but pickle. So I'm actually really happy in this because it lets me, I don't mind moving little dudes around a map and looking and seeing whether or not there's going to be a rock in the way for this shot or whatever. That's fun within limits, and it's fun to take that and then turn it around to the, very stressful conversation with your mother over the dinner table that does as much stress to you as the rest of the fight and the spellcasting bit. So I'm having a good time. I think if they refine this core vision, iron out some of the wrinkles, and maybe lean even harder into the strengths of any design philosophy, they could have something really special. They do already, but it could be even better. So I'm enjoying it. I don't think of this as time wasted. We've gone through 3 sessions now. The videos are up. So that is my take on this. I would be really curious to hear what other people have to say or what you've heard or what your impressions are, even if you haven't played, especially if you haven't played or checked it out. What have you been seeing out in the world that makes you think, yeah, it's not for me, or yeah, it might be for me, or whatever? I'm just Because a lot of people who are watching this are probably folks who have done more indie gaming than D&D. And I just want to, I'm kind of curious what you guys think. What is the impression on that side of things? Because, man, most of the noise is coming from the other side. And, yeah, let's hear it from the other side, from our side, my side, the non-pickle side. How much pickle can you guys take? Let's find out.